And here we go.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Mike from the Super Wheeler Bros, and we have a review for you today for the new MonsterVerse movie, Kong Skull Island. Kong Skull Island is a bit of an anomaly. You've got a fantastically assembled cast, including Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, John Goodman, Corey Hawkins, Shea Wingham, Tony Kebbell, Jason Mitchell, and of course the best part of the trailers, John C. Reily. But something was just off about this movie. It was off in the trailers, it was off when I started watching the film. With a cast that talented assembled, and as much money and special effects dollars you could throw at the director, Vogt-Roberts, this should have been a runaway success. But that's the problem. You have nothing essentially memorable about this movie. There's no memorable characters aside from John C. Reily as Marlowe. He's the one character who gets more than the perfunctory throwaway lines. You get a little bit of insight into his background. Not a ton, but a little bit. Enough to maybe grow some attachment to him. Brie Larson's character is literally just a photographer. That's her only purpose. That's the bad thing. Like, these roles could have been filled by anybody in this monster movie. The one line she gets is, oh, she's seen a graveyard like this before, so she knows how it feels. So we don't know anything about what that was. We don't have her discuss it with anyone. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Tom Hiddleston, he's just there to look cool. He's the tracker. That's the only background you get, and that, you know, he doesn't expect everybody to make it back alive because expeditions like this tend to have casualties. That's really all you get. John Goodman is a mad scientist who nobody believes that there are monsters except for Corey Hawkins, who wrote a dissertation, and John Goodman takes him along with him. That's really all you get. And then you got your soldiers. The rest of the crew is pretty much consisted upon Samuel L. Jackson, who is the captain, and his crew, which includes Tony Kebbell, Shea Wingham, and Jason Mitchell, and a bunch of other faceless, nameless guys who are just there for Kong to be able to kill or to die on the island. There's a really cool opening scene. I will give it that. There's about 20 minutes of setup. There's not much setup at all, and then we're on the island, which you're on for the remainder of the film. And there's a cool opening scene where Kong gets into the fight right away. You don't have to wait long. This movie essentially becomes the opposite of Godzilla, in which it shares this universe that makes no sense that they're in a shared universe. But, you know, everybody's trying to be Marvel now, so, you know, where it makes sense with DC, because obviously they have a large comic book universe that they've always shared characters. Now we've got a MonsterVerse where Godzilla and King Kong will eventually fight, I'm sure. And judging by the end credit sequence, which you should stick around to see, most people aren't doing, but there is a end credit sequence, we get a indication of what direction they're heading. But this movie, it's all monster and no character. The opposite of Godzilla, which was a lot of character and very little monster. And the special effects are impressive. There is one scene where we kind of have almost like a green screen look, and I was really surprised, given that this movie was shot on location, but they wanted to get a really weird special effect, but it was not convincing at all. But for the most part, Jordan Vogt-Roberts does a good job with the visuals, but the storytelling aspect is completely lost, which is why I think the best way to describe this movie, and I've said this a few times when people have asked me what I thought about it, was a decent monster movie. It was like an effective monster movie. But it's not a very effective King Kong movie. King Kong in this movie is enormous. Godzilla size, I would say. And they did that for the sole purpose of having him fight Godzilla at some point. That's very clear. It's by far the largest incarnation. I mean, all the other King Kongs can be considered little brothers to this King Kong. The way that Kong is presented in this movie is very different. He's much more of a hero than he ever has been in the past. That is pretty much his role on the island, is to protect the indigenous from having to worry about all these really large and scary creatures. And they did a good job of presenting those creatures as scary. As a matter of fact, I thought that this movie, for a PG-13 movie, was pretty brutal. There is some blood, there is some gore even. I mean, some pretty brutal stuff for a PG-13 movie. And I was surprised at what they got away with, but that is Kong's main purpose, is to kind of be the protector. Samuel L. Jackson comes upon him and is at odds with Kong because Kong was protecting his land. He was protecting his surroundings, his turf. And that's where the most intriguing conflict of the movie comes, is Samuel L. Jackson and Kong going at each other. And it does lead to probably the best entertainment the movie has. At least it had that. Samuel L. Jackson was definitely good. It's not that the actors were bad. They just didn't have a character to present. They were really hollow. I didn't give a shit about any of them. That's the problem. You just don't care if any of them survive, and that's not good. Most King Kong movies have portrayed kind of the Beauty and the Beast kind of interaction between the main lead actress and Kong. In this movie, there really is not a romance, even though Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson's characters are definitely kind of paired up together in ideologies and just proximity. Usually in King Kong movies, he has an affinity for a woman, it seems like. There is a really passing, fleeting moment where they hint at that and then move away from it. I'm actually really glad they did that, because while it maybe would have presented some characters, it does change things and make things a little bit different, which is good because we don't want to rehash the same story that we've told since 1933 about King Kong. There was a really big missed opportunity, I think, with this movie. The special effects are really great for the most part. The direction that Jordan Vogt-Roberts presented was interesting. The camera movements were definitely interesting. I'm glad that as another indie director that we keep giving these really big budget movies to, that he at least was competent as far as shooting the movie and editing the movie. Here's the issue. You have these guys who are very well versed with low budget independent movies and storytelling, and they're trying to take their knowledge of that, but shove it aside, which is what their strengths should be. You have a team around you that should allow you, even as a small budget director, to make these bigger budget movies and make them seem more personable. And I think that they're failing a lot at that, because it doesn't seem like they're taking their strengths and pushing them to the forefront. They're too worried about the technical aspects of the movie. Clearly, that aspect of the movie was fantastic. Again, a good monster movie, not a good King Kong movie so much. No characters. So hollow. There's a relatively enjoyable conclusion, and Kong beating up characters and Kong fighting all of the other CGI characters that have populated Skull Island was really pretty fun, but nothing memorable. There's nothing as memorable as the fight where King Kong takes on two T-Rexes in Peter Jackson's version, or where he even takes on the snake in Dino De Laurentiis' version, or, of course, the T-Rex in the 1933 original King Kong. The score, virtually non-existent. Again, it's just a very forgettable popcorn movie. That's what it is in the end. I wasn't overly excited for this movie, and like I said, something was missing, and that in the end kind of confirmed my suspicions after having seen it. It was enjoyable enough to where I could recommend people going to see it. The 3D was okay. Not super distracting, but didn't really add anything to the film. You don't have to worry about having much setup or much story. There's not a lot of that. It's just a lot of special effects and turn your brain off action. If I'm going to score Kong Skull Island, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Again, not a bad movie, but just not what I was hoping it would be. And it ended up turning out very much like I anticipated, given the way that the trailer shaped up. And it does seem like the review aggregators on Rotten Tomatoes that have a lot of critics that do enjoy it, and there is a lot of things to enjoy about this movie. I just wish that we could have got a little bit more characterization and a little bit more kind of feeling some kind of way, any kind of way really, about any of our characters, whether it be hate or disdain or caring about them in general. I mean, even King Kong shows so much personality in all of these other iterations, and it's just a hollow movie. It's a hollow movie, and that's why it didn't get a better score from me. Tell me what you guys thought of Kong Skull Island in the comments below if you've already seen it. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give us a like. It definitely helps us out. And if you want to see more reviews just like this in the future, or any of our other videos on the channel, click right here and subscribe. My name is Mike from the Super Wheeler Bros, and as always, my friends, have yourselves a super week.